Perfect. Thanks, Carl. I'll go ahead. I'll introduce myself. I'm Whitney Schulte. I work here within our HR department in terms of recruitment for our IT department. Our IT department consists of about 700 or so employees. And then I also want to go ahead and introduce Nick, who's my partner, and I'll let him kind of tell what he kind of does and what he's responsible for.
Hey, this is Nick, and yeah, I'll be brief, but basically, I am a market intel and sourcing advisor. So I help support our talent advisors, who Whitney is. She kind of runs with certain positions, and I'm kind of helping with sourcing candidates that we might not be able to find that are applying to the roles that we have. But yeah, I also assist in all professional uh, positions, professional vertical, which includes IT. That's it.
Perfect. Thanks, Nick. I am going to go ahead. And can you guys see the next slide, the agenda? Nick, can you see that?
I do not. I just see the careers in healthcare.
Okay, there we go.
Right
Sorry.
now, I see it.
All right. So want to go, we obviously went over the welcome and introductions piece of it, but want to go over, Bjc Healthcare. So you're probably pretty familiar with us. We're fairly large here in and around the St. Louis, Missouri area. We have around 30,000 employees, and we're made up of 15 hospitals. Like I said, our IT department is considered, our shared services, which is really kind of like, AKA our corporate division of BJC. So it's services that are provided to all of the hospitals across the region. In terms of, like I said, our information services department, that includes, standard, security, infrastructure, so networking, servers, things like that. We have a PMO, a VMO, and then we also have an area that supports all of our clinical applications. So if you think of, all the different things that go on within a hospital and all the different applications that are supported, our IT department has to support those systems and those functions within the hospital. So if you think about, if you're going in to get an x-ray, if you're going into, a transplant. So if you think about it, there is an application or some type of IT application that supports, those different areas. So yeah, and then in terms of, some other things that we kind of want to go over, later in the presentation will be, what's the benefits of working for a BJC? And that's not just, medical, dental, vision, why would you want to consider a health, a career in healthcare, right? So what's our mission, and why do we have people that want to work for BJC? And then we'll go over, some tips and tricks in terms of applying. And then, myself and Nick will go over any answers to, any questions that you guys might have. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and move on through the presentation here. And this just kind of says, again, who we are, if you wanted to write down our information, but we kind of went over that. But to go over, like I said, the 15 entities that kind of make up Bjc Healthcare, right? So these are some of the organizations that support all of BJC or that kind of wrap under BJC. So obviously, you got Children's, you got Barnes Jewish, you got Missouri Baptist, Bjc Home Care. So those are all the 15 kind of organizations that make up or fall underneath the whole healthcare, underneath Bjc Healthcare. All right. And this slide really just kind of goes over, why Bjc Healthcare. So what's our vision? What's our purpose? What's our shared principles. I don't think I need to read from this slide. The moral of why we're here is we're to serve our patients. And I'll go back to, you might, yourself might not be a patient, but maybe you have a family member, or maybe it's your future child that will be a patient at some point. So everything that we do is for the patients, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a patient care tech, and that falls even within our corporate space as well. So within IT. So it all goes back to, providing the best service to, our employees, who then give direct patient care to the patients within our communities. So that's our purpose. That's why we're here. And why, you would potentially want to work for a healthcare organization. Because at the end of the day, what you do, directly impacts the community that you live in, right? Which is kind of neat if you think about it in that aspect. All right. So this kind of goes over what we plan on doing. BJC has a new initiative, just like any other probably big organization nowadays. We want to become, more digital friendly. So what does that mean, right? That's more consumer centric. So you have the Amazons, you have the Walmarts, you have, Google, you think about all the big competitors out there, and why do people want to work for them, or what makes it so easy, to go, click on your app and order something off Amazon, right? So we want to do the same thing within our healthcare space. So we want to make it easy for our future patients. If you're scheduling a doctor's appointment, how can we make that more consumer centric? How can we make it easier to do that? Right now, sometimes you might call and try and make an appointment, and you can't get in for 3-4 months to a specialist. Well, how can we better be able to self-schedule those patients and those appointments and things like that? So that's a big initiative that we have in the next couple of years from an IT standpoint in terms of what we want to do. So that's a little bit about kind of what we want to do from a digital factory standpoint, and that's kind of what we're calling it, is consumer centric digital front face in terms of what we look to do. And that's a top-down initiative that's coming from our CEO. And so this slide kind of really just goes over, the different areas that make up our IT space. So I kind of mentioned, we got our infrastructure, security, we have business relations, which is kind of like your PMO, your VMO, business analyst, that type of thing. And then you also have like, the high level architect type of roles, where you're really getting in and you have a strong understanding of certain applications at a high level. So these are kind of the examples of the areas that fall within our IT space. And then in more particularly, some of the opportunities that come available within each kind of pillar, or each area of expertise, so to speak. And then some of the experience that would typically align, as you guys probably know this, being in school and whatnot, there are a ton of things out there for IT, right? So you could be specialized in one specific area and never touch anything ever in your whole career. So these are some things that we typically look for that are common within some of the positions that we recruit for, or that we need. And we have a lot of analyst roles, and that falls kind of within our clinical space, right? So we have something called Epic, which is kind of like the Cadillac of our EMR system. And an EMR system is, an electronic medical record system. So how do we keep track of all of our patients' information, our patient records? So typically, we look for people that want to get into Epic and want to work within that space, because we're always going to be needing analysts to be able to go in and make modification and upgrades to our EMR system. So we have a specialized group that entirely focuses on Epic. So that would be something. Obviously, SQL's big. Tableau, we use a lot of Tableau in terms of reporting and analytics. And then we're kind of getting into the more of the DevOps space and the cloud space. So here's just a few things that kind of align with what we're targeting or what we typically look for from a skill set perspective. All right, so kind of want to go over, let me see here, and maybe we'll go over this later because I don't want to go over resume writing tips if that's something. I only want to go over it with you guys if you guys have questions on it. I don't want to focus the whole presentation on that. So I think the biggest thing, and anyone can kind of tell you this, is when you're applying or you're considering working for an organization, is do your research. Are you going online? Are you checking them out? Do you have friends or family that works for some of those organizations? So just make sure that you're kind of doing your due diligence on your end, right? I can tell you from a culture standpoint that's huge, right? So you not only want to believe in the mission and the values of where you work, but you want to fit in, right? And I think that's key, especially nowadays, in terms of where you want to be. So just something to keep in mind when you're kind of out there in terms of your job search and whatnot. Benefits. Benefits are obviously really important to some people, not important to others, but something to consider is what's the PTO. We offer tuition reimbursement, so continuing education classes and whatnot. So always look for those things that might be beneficial to you from a benefit standpoint as well. And this kind of just goes over some of the things that we have from a benefit standpoint, or we like to refer to it as like a total rewards package. So not everything is based upon, your base pay. It's based upon, medical, dental, vision, reward programs, pension plans, flexible spending accounts, things like that. So just something to keep in mind as you guys are kind of working through your career search. And obviously, that's a big portion of what we want to sell to our potential employees too, is why come work for BJC? Well, we have all of this on top of what you get paid on a day-to-day basis. Another thing too, and this kind of goes back to the cultural piece of it, you want to make sure that you're fitting in. We recently, probably within the last 4 years or so, we created something called our Bjc Connection Groups, which is really great. It's a way for you to join a piece of an organization that you feel strongly or passionate about. And you do this kind of off the side of your desk, so to speak. So these are a few of the connection groups that we have. So we have something for, diverse nurses. We have something for, veterans. We have something for women's. We have something for, young professionals. The young professionals would probably speak a lot, especially for someone newer in their career, right? How do you navigate a 30,000 employee company, So I know a lot of people that have joined the young professionals group, and you get the chance to talk to various different presidents and high level people when you go and you attend these groups, and you kind of get their perspective, right? Like, how did you get to where you were? What's your advice? What would you say to someone early in their career that has done this? So it's just a good way to connect with people that are a good way to connect with people that are kind of in this similar mindset as you. So just a few things that we've kind of implemented here recently within the last couple years. That's really, we've seen a huge impact in terms of employees and what they want to do. And this is just our career site. Where you go online and where you can apply for the different opportunities that we might have available. And this is kind of just a short snapshot of what a typical process would look like from a hiring standpoint. So, obviously you would apply online. Myself or someone else within talent acquisition would reach out to you for a phone interview. And then you'd be invited for a virtual or a face-to-face interview. Right now with COVID and everything, we are doing all virtual through Microsoft Teams. And then you would be selected if you were selected to move forward in the process. More than likely you'd come in for a peer interview, so you'd meet the team. And then we do professional references. And then, if all goes well, then, a potential offer would be made. And then we go through kind of what we refer to as our pre-employment process. So that takes typically 10 days, but that includes a background check and an occupational health appointment and making sure that you're up to date on all your shots and whatnot. So just a little snapshot of what the typical hiring process would look like from start to finish. All right. So yeah, and back to our career site here. So it kind of shows where you would go, and you have the opportunity to type in kind of what opportunities that you would feel like you would want to search for. And you would type in anything that you would kind of like within Google or something like that. So you can type in nursing, you type in, obviously you wouldn't pick nursing, but you could do, any type of IT job and it would pop up. And I think everyone knows the importance of networking. I think that's probably why you're here, is you want to be able to network with people that might help you, after you graduate, or maybe you've graduated and you're trying to still navigate. I think it's important to obviously always network, asking your friends or your family, or attending different conferences or networking events is always going to be beneficial. And then since we live in the COVID area right now, or the COVID time period, how do you navigate a video interview, right? So just making sure that you would treat it like you would any other type of interview. So dressing professional, making sure you have the right attire on, being prepared. So making sure that you've logged into wherever you need to log in prior, limit distractions. What are some other things? Yeah, and making sure that you're familiar with whatever platform's being used. So if that's Zoom, if that's, a Microsoft Teams, I know there's some other ones out there. I just can't think of what's common, but just making sure you're prepared. I think being prepared for any type of interview is key, right? So you would do the same thing if you were, on a video interview. And then the biggest thing that I think from a recruiting standpoint, or I get asked a lot, is what types of questions are asked in an interview. And I will tell you that a lot of organizations have went to this type of method. So I always tell people, if you're not familiar with behavioral based interviews, make sure you go online and you familiarize yourself with these types of questions. So the easiest way for me to put it is they refer to it as a STAR method, or a STAR technique. So, it's a situation, task, action, and result. So it's a 4-step question that's typically asked. And we ask 3 or 4 of these in an interview. So, the situation might be describe the situation, explain the place you were working at or the task you were given. And then the task, describe the issue or problem you were confronted with. What was the action? And then what was the results? So I always tell people, if you don't know this, just go online. You can Google, examples of behavioral based questions, right? And it can kind of give you some examples of what some common questions might be, or if not, it might tell you how to answer those types of questions. So it's really knowledgeable from someone early in their career to be able to get some exposure to that, because I would assume that most places that you'll interview with will have these types of questions. All right, so that kind of concludes what we want to go over. I'm going to open it up if we have any specific questions that you guys might have about our IT careers, BJC in general. I'm happy to answer anything that you guys might have questions about.